Hello, dear students, and welcome to this e-class. And we have resumed the lecture. This is my lecture 3 on chapter 2, that is writing and city life. And so far, we have talked about Mesopotamia and its geography. We have talked about urban life. We have talked about the various commodities that they traded with the other places, and what was the significance of urbanism of Mesopotamia. So, we are going to deal with the further topics, and we are going to talk about urbanization in the southern part of Mesopotamia. So, today we start with the first topic, that is urbanization in southern Mesopotamia. From 5000 BCE, settlements began to develop in southern Mesopotamia. Even gradually, from settlements, they changed into cities. So, the earliest cities began to develop. These cities were of the following kinds: cities that developed around temples or the temple towns, cities that developed as centers of trade, and imperial cities. So, in this chapter, we are going to talk about the temple towns, and we are also going to talk about the trading towns. We are not going to talk about imperial cities, and we'll be taking specially urbanization in the southern part of Mesopotamia. So we start with the temples of Mesopotamia. Now, the earliest settlers, whose origin is unknown, they began to build and rebuild temples at selected spots in their villages. The earliest known temple was a small shrine made of unbaked bricks. Temples were considered to be the residence of various gods, for example, the moon god of Ur, or Inanna, who was considered to be goddess of love and war. Over the time, the temples became larger, they started to be built with baked bricks. They had several rooms around an open courtyard. Some of the earliest temples looked like houses. The only difference was that temples had outer walls going in and out, zigzag pattern, but houses did not have such walls. And interestingly, people offered grain, curd, fish in the temples to the gods. In this picture, you get to see the architectural plan of the early temples. You can see in the middle there is a central room. Then on the side you have priest room. You have shrines. In this picture, you can see at least three shrines are visible, and there is entrance through the north. One gets inside the temple, and you can see some small steps also to get upstairs. You can find the presence of a hearth also. So this was the construction of temples in early Mesopotamia. Coming to the later temples, if you see, the later temples were built on a larger area. They were made of baked bricks. They had fine appearance, and it was built at a height. The temples had considerable height. It looked like a fortress. So there was marked difference between the earlier temples and the later temples of Mesopotamia. Continuing with the temples of Mesopotamia, we see that God was considered to be theoretically he was considered to be the owner of all the agricultural fields, fisheries, herds of the local community. And gradually we find that activities like oil pressing, grain grinding, spinning, weaving, all these were done in the temples. The temple became the organizer of production at a level above the household, an employer of merchants, keeper of written records of the distributions and allotment of grain, plough, animals, bread, beer, fish. And temple over the time became the main urban institution. So temple building was considered to be not only it was considered from the point of religious point of view for offering prayers, but also for doing community service and community works. Next, we talk about agriculture in Mesopotamia. In spite of the natural fertility, agriculture, which was a prime occupation of the people, it was also subject to hazards. There were two kinds of hazards: natural hazards and man made hazards. Now, natural outlet channels of Euphrates would have too much of water one year and flood the crops. Sometimes the course would change altogether, therefore, villages had to be relocated periodically. Whereas man made hazards means those who lived on the upstream stretches of a channel could divert so much of water into their fields that villages downstream were left without water. Also, people could neglect to clean out the silt from their stretch of the channel, and this blocked the water flowing downwards. So, the early Mesopotamian countryside saw repeated conflict over land and water. As we see that people used to fight for land and water, definitely warfare was a common feature in Mesopotamia. There was continuous warfare in the region. Those chiefs who had been successful in war, they could oblige their followers by distributing the loot. They could take prisoners from the defeated groups to employ as their guards and servants. So they could increase their influence. However, such war leaders could be here today and gone tomorrow. Over the time, victorious chiefs began to offer precious booty to the gods and thus beautify the community temples. They would send their men out to fetch fine stones and metals for the benefit of God and community and organize the distribution of temple wealth in an efficient way. As you can see, this is a scene of warfare from one of the regions of Mesopotamia where there were no particular groups to fight war. Enemies were just enemies. Since we have seen that warfare was a common feature in Mesopotamia, the leaders encouraged the settlement of villages close to themselves to be able to rapidly get an army together. Besides, people would be safe living in close proximity to one another. Now we are talking about Uruk, the earliest temple town. The site was continuously occupied from about 4200 BCE to about 400 CE, and by about 2800 BCE it had expanded from 250 hectares to 400 hectares. The war captives and local people were put to work for the temple or directly for the ruler. This, rather than agricultural tax, was compulsory, and those who were put to work were paid rations. Now, with the rulers commanding people to fetch stones or metal ores to come and make or lay bricks for the temple, or to go to distant places to fetch suitable materials, there was also technical advances in Uruk around 3000 BCE. So, when we consider Uruk, the bronze tools were used for various crafts. Architects learned to construct brick columns. Hundreds of people were made to make or bake clay cones to be used in the temple walls. Sculptures were made of imported stone. Potter's wheel was a technological landmark in Uruk. Now let's have a look at the way the Mesopotamian women dressed. And if you closely look at the pictures, you will find that the women dressed according to their social status. The women also dressed according to their positions in the society. The women also dressed according to the region they belonged. So every dress every woman is wearing in the pictures, they are quite different from one another. Quite interestingly, life in the city might be quite different, and we get to know about it from the legal texts like the disputes, inheritance matters, etc. We get to know about the Mesopotamian society that the society had nuclear family. However, the married son and his family often resided with his parents, and the father was considered to be the head of the family, which is a patriarchal society. The procedure of marriage was as follows. First of all, a declaration was made about the willingness to marry, the bride's parents giving their consent to the marriage. A gift was given from the groom's people to the bride's people, and when the wedding took place, gifts were exchanged by both the parties. They ate together and made offerings in the temple, and when her mother in law came to fetch, the bride was given her share of the inheritance by her father. The father's house, herds, fields, they were all inherited by the son.